Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a pretty wild philosophical journey. Picture this: a glowing, neon toga-wearing philosopher named Ali and his sidekick, a brass robotic owl. We're going to follow these two through a misty, cybernetic mountain landscape to unpack the very fabric of human consciousness and how it actually evolves. Right off the bat, let's look at our ultimate destination, which is actually a massive philosophical paradox. The quote says, "The child says I am, a sacred game, a return to the first innocence." So we're heading toward this state of returning to our most pure innocent baseline, while at the exact same time hitting our absolute peak creative potential. Kind of sounds contradictory, right? Like, how does going backward to total innocence mean moving forward to actual creation? Well, hang on to that, because getting there requires a massive internal shift. To figure that out, we're exploring the concept of awakening, or what the source material calls yakada. We're going to map this whole allegorical quest of consciousness through three distinct, completely necessary transformations. Because, let's be real, most of us are basically walking around asleep. We're weighed down by ideas, expectations, and rules we never actually chose. Just think about it for a second. How many of your core beliefs were handed to you rather than discovered by you? So how does a mind actually wake up from that heavy slumber? Well, the journey kicks off with stage one, the camel. This is all about the burden of tradition, and it's basically the default setting for most of us. Imagine this vast digital desert, lit up by circuitry. Here, the camel represents the blind follower. It's the student who just passively carries this incredibly heavy load of inherited tradition, societal norms, and unchallenged beliefs. It's like a literal beast of burden lugging massive cargo across a wasteland. The mind in this stage doesn't even think to question what's in the bags. It just carries the weight because, well, it was told to. But to truly awaken, to level up that consciousness, our guy, Ali, absolutely cannot stay a camel forever. As Ali treks deeper into the sparking, broken neon circuitry of the mountains, things get harsh. He has to adapt. So we enter stage two, where he transforms into the fierce, uncompromising spirit of the lion. Now, the really crucial point here is that this stage, known as takalia, or emptying, isn't just some wild emotional rebellion. It's not about being mad at the system just to be edgy. It's actually a strict, methodical deconstruction of false idols. It is a highly calculated return to the original truth, meticulously tearing down every single inherited concept that just doesn't hold up to objective scrutiny. In this fierce phase, the lion completely destroys those unverified additions. Think of it like a massive system reboot. You're clearing out the mental landscape, smashing that faulty camel programming to make way for pure light. You literally have to remove all those internal biases and inherited obstacles that were blocking your view to establish a real, objective measure of truth. I mean, ask yourself, what would it actually feel like to totally wipe away the biases you've reflexively held onto for years? The relief is insane, but you gotta have the lion's destructive courage to get there. After the roar of the lion, the dust finally settles. All that destructive energy morphs into a calm, resonant peace as we hit our third and final transformation, the child. To really wrap our heads around the child, we have to talk about a core concept called fitra. The text describes fitra as the first ontological barzakh, which means an intermediary state. I know, heavy philosophical jargon, but an intermediary state just means it's a bridge between worlds. It's this profound primordial attunement. It basically means human consciousness is naturally, fundamentally wired for harmony with existence and truth. Kind of like how an eye is structurally built to perceive light before it ever even opens. It actually really helps to look at what fitra is absolutely not. For centuries, philosophy has been stuck between two extremes. On one hand, you have John Locke pushing tabula rasa, the idea that the mind is a totally blank slate just waiting for sensory experience to write all over it. On the other hand, you have Plato and Anamnesis, the idea that the mind is a fully loaded memory bank, and learning is literally just remembering what you already know. Fitra completely rejects both of these extremes. Instead, fitra is this interactive intermediary. It's a structural readiness. It doesn't have all the answers pre-downloaded, but it's definitely not a blank slate either. It's a living disposition that just needs to be awakened or reminded of the truth it was already built to recognize. It's an active bridge. When the lion clears out all that false tradition, the mind naturally snaps back to this deeply harmonious state. It doesn't need to be taught truth. It just needs a reminder. And that brings us perfectly to why the final stage is the child.
Returning to Fitra lets the child play a sacred game. Because the mind is finally clear of all that junk and perfectly attuned to universal truth, the child can act as a creator out of nothingness. They aren't just rebelling against the old ways anymore. They're establishing brand new, pure values in total harmony with the universe. Hitting this state means we stop just echoing society. We can finally say, I am. Not like a parrot repeating tradition, but as a completely original, authentic voice.
So, looking at the whole picture, the path to awakening has this really beautiful, logical flow. We start off as the camel, just passively carrying that heavy burden of tradition. Then, we transform into the lion, using takliya or emptying to methodically destroy those false weights. And finally, we arrive at the child, returning to our fitra to create completely anew. It's a brilliant blueprint for spiritual and intellectual evolution. So, where does this leave our biopunk philosopher? Ollie has navigated these incredibly taxing stages and finally reaches the end of the line, the Oasis Awakening. Picture this. He's sitting by these misty, tranquil waters, his neon toga glowing softly in the twilight. He's experiencing the ultimate peace of the Yakata, the awakening. The camel's burdens are gone, the lion's roar is quiet, and he is just resting purely in the creative potential of the child. He's completely shed the noise of the world. It is a moment of absolute, untouchable serenity. But just as he reaches for a well-deserved bite to eat to celebrate this massive state of high consciousness, a sudden whirring of vintage Brosk gears completely shatters the silence. His trusty blue neon-lensed robotic owl cheekily swoops down from the cyber trees and totally steals his lunch. Because honestly, even in the absolute highest, most transcendent states of awakening, the universe has a really funny way of bringing you right back down to earth to deal with the practical realities of life, like a hungry, thieving robot bird. So while Ali tries to negotiate with a metallic bird for his lunch, I want to leave you with this to ponder. If you were to methodically shed the weight of your own inner camel today, if you were to roar like the lion and clear away the beliefs you merely inherited, what new, authentic values would your inner child create? How are you going to awaken the creator within? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and seriously, keep questioning the cargo you carry.